In today's video, we're tackling a project inspired by the artist Greg Klassen, making a small end table out of a piece of burl wood log. Today's video is going to look a little bit differently because instead of having my camera guy Mark film everything, this is actually just something I'm doing on my own time. So it's just being filmed on my cell phone. I do have a spare mic, so I'm using that. But it's mostly just gonna be single camera angle at a time, and we'll see if we can make it look good. All right, I've got this big old log here, which has got some lovely burls on it. Burl is basically when the tree gets sort of a tumor, and you can see we've got a couple of them right here, one of them right here. This is what we're gonna be using to make most of the table. First thing I need to do is cut this. What I want to do is get one piece, maybe 1.5 to 2 inches wide, that comes down through both of these pieces of burl right here, and then a second piece that I'm gonna cut out this direction that comes down through this piece of burl. I have drawn onto the top of it some lines. That's about where I want that first cut to go. So I'll cut here and here, and then I'll have this half of the log, and then I'll cut that direction from what's left to try and get this strip right there. I'm gonna try and secure it to the table as best I can. It's gonna be a little messy probably. Beautiful. Cut it open, now I just have to do that like 3 more times. So more trimming will be done. And generally, I'll just trim off kind of along this part, a little bit around here, and probably right around there. Just a nice little rectangle. Now I need to clean these off. They're not very even. I just cut them with a handsaw, obviously, and so they need some planing work. I don't actually feel like these pieces need to be 100% level and even all the way through. If there's a little bit of fluctuation, that's not too much of a problem. It's not going to be sitting on a flat base. I'm just gonna build a frame that goes around parts of the edge of it. And so if there's some wonkiness going on in there, it's not really a problem. I think it'll actually add to the live edge look of it. Obviously though, I want it flat enough that I can set a cup down on it and not have it tip over, stuff like that. Mostly for this, I think I'm just gonna be using a handheld belt sander and see how it looks after that. That is already bringing out some brilliant figuring, and that's like 80 grit. This stuff is gonna look so good when it's all polished up. Next step is to sandblast the end pieces of the wood. I'm here with my friend Dennis, who is letting me use his sandblasting kit because I don't have one of those, and it's a pretty nifty setup. So we've got sand that fits in that thing there. It feeds through here. The blue hose has the compressed air. It pulls all of the sand out with it, and it's like sandpaper without the paper part. It just starts tearing stuff down, which is great because these edges are not really an area I can get sandpaper down into. I even tried a little bit with steel wool, and there's just too many nooks and crannies, but sand blasting works great. Let's not breathe in sand or wood dust, and let's not get it in our eyes. What? Beautiful. Look at that. That is so much cleaner than it was before. That is fantastic. That worked great. This wood is so soft that I'm able to cut even through like a 2-inch plank of it with no problem. So we're just gonna keep doing that. Now, one other little thing I want to do right here, I have kind of a large cavity, and that's not necessarily a problem, but I think we could make it a little bit more interesting. We've got some extra pieces of the wood, including some that have some of this nice burl on it. So I think we're gonna try and cut a piece that can sit right here as sort of just an extra little island. I think that's a great fit for that piece right there. So now we need to trim it this way and then flatten it off just a little bit. And I think we can use this saw for that again. So we've built the box. You can see that the wood fits nicely into it. On the back, we're going for pretty much flush up against the wall, but on the sides, you can see we are leaving a gap. Now we'll trim down the black board. It'll have a little bit of extra space going all around the border. That's all right. We'll then flip the white frame over and we'll attach the black part of the frame onto the white part of the frame. Then we should have our box. Also, just to make sure that none of the resin tries to escape, I'm gonna seal up all of the gaps with electrical tape. There is a little bit more prep work we need to do on our box. We first actually want to give that a coat of wax. Hopefully that will make it so the resin doesn't stick to it very much, so we can then peel the box pieces off later on. You know, before I clamp these on, I want to cover the clamps with something so that resin doesn't spill out and just get all over those. So I'm gonna use a little bit of foil or plastic wrapped around those just to not ruin them. Now, when the resin flows, the wood will not float on top of it. We're gonna be doing the resin port indoors because it's not good if you let it get too hot or too cold, so a nice climate controlled environment is good. However, you also don't want to be breathing it in. First step, we need to pour off some of both types of resin into our smaller mixing containers. We'll then pour 1/2 into the other one. For coloring, we'll be using this alcohol ink, sailboat blue color. Mix it up for a while, then pour that into our larger bucket, and our larger bucket will go into our vacuum chamber. We'll suck out all of the air so there's not bubbles left in the resin, and then it'll get poured into the table. No bubbles. Coming back after the second pour, and it's looking good over most of it, but unfortunately we do have one spot where the resin cracked. You can see that crack extending all the way down through that second pour layer, and I think it actually even goes down into the first pour layer a little bit down in there. Just split right across, and maybe this is because I poured too thick of a layer. Maybe the first layer was still warm and the interaction between the two layers was too much for it. But let's mix up a third pour. We're not gonna use nearly all of it. We're just gonna try and get it high enough that it comes up to the level of the wood everywhere, maybe overflowing just the tiniest bit, fill some of these gaps. This all filled in quite nicely. There's a lot of resin in that gap. So I think on this side, it is full enough. We've got other spots that may not have enough yet. This one over here didn't fill quite as well. We'll cut off the other side and see how it is. We are gonna take this edge and give it a pass right along this. Perfect. This side of the table is really the one that has all of the cracks that need filling. The other side did pretty good. This one's just got a few spots, few cracks that didn't fill quite enough. The other side actually did have some, it looked like, but when I planed the edge off, they went away, so they were really shallow. So we're just gonna mix up some resin with no coloring in it, and then we're gonna use a pipette and fill right down into these cracks. The surface of our table is pretty much all prepped and ready, but what I need to do now is put a couple more layers of resin over all of this. So I'm going to do one layer, just pour it over all of that, and that should pretty much seal up the wood so it stops soaking it in. After that layer is cured, I'll do any cleanup work that I need to, removing drips off the edge and maybe a little bit of sanding. But then I'll do one more layer of resin on top of that, and at that point it should all just be a glossy, clear, perfectly smooth surface. The frame for our table is going to be made of these simple pieces of metal that I'm just grabbing at the hardware store. They're not too expensive. We're going to do a little bit of grinding, a little bit of welding, and a little bit of painting, and we'll have our frame. Our metal pieces are cut, welded, shaped, and painted, and we've now got our frame. It's fairly minimalistic, but I really want the top of this table to be the focus. We have now finished this table. The frame is built, it's attached, it's sitting on here. You are still able to lift it up, but the friction from these little sponge rubber pads on the sides does a pretty good job of holding it in place. I'm quite happy with how stable it is. I'm very happy with how it looks. There are imperfections and of course things I would probably do differently if I were making a second one. Overall, I am quite happy with how the surface of this table turned out. I love that just incredible wood grain that's visible through the resin. Very happy with the result on that. So this has been a really cool project and I am excited to have this set up in my place as sort of combination functional table art piece. That's gonna be exciting. That's not all though, you know we've always got more for you. See that box up at the top is gonna take you directly to our last video. You should go check that out. The other box is gonna show you what YouTube thinks you should be watching next. If you hit this bomb in the middle, you'd be subscribed to the channel, that way you never miss a video. Don't forget to ring that bell and we'll see you in the next one. Talk to you then.